This is happiness, to be everything at once. Be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Mood Prep. My name is Dave Nixon. We're going to continue on with a bit of warrior ethos today. As I mentioned yesterday in Stephen Pressfield's book, I read a passage out of that, a little bit of a passage, and pulled it apart. It was the Lord of the Battlefield, which is phobia, fear, personified fear. And I'm going to continue on with that. As you may have guessed, if you have followed the theme of my podcast in the past, that every now and again I'll grab a book and I'll pull it apart for 5 podcasts. And I really enjoy Stephen Pressfield's writing. I think it's very well written for especially non-fiction work, but he just has this undertone of like a poetic landscape, I suppose, is the easiest way I can try and explain it. But either way, let's get stuck straight into it. The Warrior Ethos, Stephen Pressfield. We're on page 33 today. It's chapter 11 called Rugged Land. What I'm going to do, I'm going to read this passage. It will be, well, it'll take me, I don't know, a minute. And then from there, I've got 3 things I want to pull apart, and then fucking Bob's your uncle. Probably. Bill's mine. But anyway, let's get to it. Rugged Land. Many warrior cultures have arisen in harsh physical environments. Greeks and Macedonians, Romans and Russians, even the British and Japanese, isolated on their resource-poor islands, as well as the Maasai and the Apaki, if I said that correctly, the Zulu and the Bedouin. I don't know how to say some of these. Bear with me. The clansmen of the Scottish Highlands in Afghanistan, the Pashtun tribesmen of the Hindu Kush. Here in America, the mountain and hill country of Virginia and West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, and southern Missouri, not to mention the Carolinas, Georgia, and Texas, has produced outstanding soldiers from the Civil War to the present. The interesting thing about peoples and cultures from rugged environments is that they almost never choose to leave them. When the Persians, under Cyrus the Great, who came from the harsh Zagros Mountains in what is today known as Iran, conquered the lowlands 2,700 years ago, the royal advisors assumed that Cyrus would abandon his barren, rocky homeland and settle into the good life in the Medes' fertile valleys. But Cyrus knew, as the proverb declares, that soft lands make soft people. His answer became famous throughout the world. Better to live in a rugged land and rule than to cultivate rich plains and be a slave. When Alexander invaded Afghanistan in 330s BC, he allied himself with numerous tribes and set about making their lives better and easier by building roads into their mountain valleys so that they could trade and prosper. Emerging from winter quarters the following year, Alexander found all the roads destroyed. The tribes he had built them for had done that themselves. They didn't want trade or prosperity. They preferred isolation and freedom. The idea of a rugged land can be applied psychologically as well. There's a well-known gunnery sergeant in the Marines Corps who explains to his young Marines, when they complain about pay, that they get 2 kinds of salary: a financial salary and a psychological salary. The financial salary is indeed meager, but the psychological salary, pride, honour, integrity, the chance of being part of a corps with a history of service, valour, glory, to have friends who would sacrifice their lives for you as you would for them, and to know that you remain a part of this brotherhood as long as you live, how much is that worth? So there you go. The chapter of Rugged Land. Soft lands make soft people. So what's interesting about this, and if I really sort of think about and try and pull it apart as best I can, I've got 3 points here that I want to touch on. And so the first thing, the message that I get from this is that comfort makes us soft. Now, there's a certain element of that, and I think there's an undertone of that throughout this whole book. However, it's actually too much comfort makes us soft, right? Because if nothing's comfortable, then that's comfort, because we're comfortable in the uncomfortable, right? So that's the paradox in itself. But it's actually too much comfort that makes us soft. It's too much protection that makes us soft, right? This is what's dangerous about, like, not being allowed to say things, not wanting to be offended. You might offend someone, you might trigger someone. It's just like, we have to awkwardly have difficult conversations and stumble through our thought processes and how we think, and we have to risk that. We have to risk offending people, and we have to also understand why we're offended at things as well, and we take that into the board, and this is why, into the broader aspect of life, and this is why I recommend people to do a martial art and to learn how to utilize their body and to learn how to wrestle, learn how to do these physical components, because it teaches not only dexterity, but it gives you this deep appreciation for what your body is capable of. I remember when I was a bit younger, I would have been like 19, and I remember being, I had short man syndrome, and the best type. And I remember when I went out to town and I'd like get sort of bumped, and I was sort of like, it's not very good being short and angry. And I wasn't too angry, but I definitely had an undertone of it, right? But once I started doing martial arts and the same thing would occur, I remember clear as day thinking, you have no idea what I know, which then sort of exposed to me that I have absolutely no idea what they know. And I'm like, I don't need to be in this anymore. And so it gave me this idea of going, that's not why I'm training. That's not what, this savage world is preparing me for in this moment. And, martial art, the key word there is art. And that's why I really recommend it. Like, I really recommend people to go down that way and really make sure that you aren't hiding in things that are comfortable, because they make us soft. And the best way when we get soft to be more comfortable is to be offended by everything, and it's a dangerous fucking place to be in. So that's one area in there. The other thing is that it says here, better to live in a rugged land and rule than to cultivate rich plains and be a slave. Now this is fucking interesting. I could just do a podcast on this, like a musings on it. It's great. So it's like rugged land and rule. Okay, well, what are we actually ruling? Now that's actually presupposing that we're in charge of the rugged land, which means that we're able to respond to difficult things when they happen. Then to cultivate rich plains and be a slave. It sounds like, I don't know, it sounds like a lot of us say that as in like, not me, bro. It's like, yeah, well, one of the best ways to be a slave in today's age is to owe a lot of money and then work at a job you fucking hate to be able to pay that off. Now, I'm not saying that people should be offended by that, just about being offended again. But what I'm getting at with that, it's like, it's so crucial that we are able to do things with our life that we want to do, genuinely choose we want to do. And we have to look at that sort of stuff. Now, it's interesting when we look at rich plains and be a slave. And so the question is, what are we a slave to? Right? Now we could be a slave to the mobile phone, right? You think of it like, what are you trying to control? Right? Because whatever we're trying to control, I assure you, like 9 out of 10 times, that thing is controlling you. Right? I'm going to try and control my social media time. It's like, yeah, why, buddy? Why? Because it's controlling you. Right, okay, that's interesting. It doesn't mean you shouldn't have some sort of order or some sort of discipline, or of course you should. And what does that look like? Well, it looks different for every single person. It's something that you have to figure out, maybe get some assistance with it, whatever. Right? But what I'm getting at with this, it's like, the thing that we most sort of get a knee-jerk reaction to being a slave to, we probably are a slave to it on some degree. Right? And it's really interesting. And this is something that I've had to spend a lot of time with myself and go, do I have this? Am I like, I don't watch TV, but then I spend too much time on social media? It's like, well, am I doing that? This is interesting. I've got to sit there and pull it apart. Could I not go on this for a little while? Am I trying to control my time on it? And if I am, what does that presuppose? Is it controlling me? Do I have particular emotional responses or sort of feelings that I get when I think about checking my phone? And I've got to have this really self-honest conversation with myself and go, like, is that true? And part of me is like, nah, man, fuck, you're in control of shit, come on, bro. But another part of me is like, yeah, I don't know, man, maybe you should try and go without it for a little while. Maybe you should try and have some more rules to it. Maybe you should, be able to turn it off and not worry about it. Or how often do you think about it? When you drive and pull up at lights, do you reach for it? All of these things are really interesting to sort of look at and really self-analyze, because whatever we try to control controls us. Really interesting. The third point, the idea of rugged land can be applied psychologically as well, right? And it goes on to talk about the sergeant, which I just put out a video, I think it was yesterday, my advice to 20-year-olds. My advice to 20-year-olds, and I don't think I think it's probably more apparent to people in their early 20s, but I take it as you want to take it. But in your early 20s, if you have two options for your work, one, you're going to earn $40,000 a year, but there's a lot of experience there, and you probably don't get paid for all the hours that you work, right? There's that one. Now, this is up to your consideration. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just framing that first. You make up your own fucking mind and I'm not responsible for that, just to clarify. And this is probably something that I looked at doing. This is what I did. But you have an opportunity to take something like $70,000 or $80,000, right? But it's boring, tedious work. But hey, you can get a mortgage sooner and settle down and do the rest of it. My advice is to take the experience. Like, don't worry about it, right? Take the experience, take the psychological salary, learn how to deal with difficult times, learn how to work on a pressure cooker, right? Learn how to do shitty hours, learn how to work for shitty bosses, learn how to work for good bosses, learn how to work with good leaders, learn how to work for a cause, right? Really invest your time in the psychological salary. And it doesn't stop when we get to 30 or 40, because we want 80 to 100 years of good life. So it doesn't stop after that. The whole psychological salary carries on. Everything it can be turned into an internal test of like, what is this teaching me? What value can I derive from, this current situation, and move forward with that? I think there's something in that. Maybe that's another podcast in itself. If you do think that's another podcast in yourself, and you want to pull that apart a bit more, then message me, inbox me. I want to hear about it. In the Mood Prep Online group, you guys mention it there. I'm happy to pull it apart, and let's talk a bit more about it as well. Otherwise, guys, that's it. I've gone a little bit over time. I do apologize. But we're going to finish up there. If you haven't already, check out Mood Prep Online. If you're a PT, a coach, or an athlete, then check out the Coaches Circle as well. It's just got launched last week. You can find them both at davenixon.com.au/memberships. As always, if you have any questions, please reach out. I'm always happy to chat. Until next time, team. Peace and pizza. Kick today in the dick. And slay the dragon. I'll see you soon.
to be everything at once. Be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.